If man strikes his male or female slave with a rod, and he dies at his hand, he shall surely be punished. But if for a day or two he is able to stand, no punishment shall be taken, for he is his property. Okay, now let's put things in perspective. And if men struggle with each other and strike a woman with child, so that she gives birth prematurely, yet there is no injury, he shall surely be fined, as the woman's husband will set for him. He shall pay as the judges decide. Notice, if you cause a baby to die, a woman to prematurely go into labor because you struck her, the baby dies, you are to be put to death. But if there's any further injury, then you shall pay life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, bruise for bruise, wound for wound. Now, watch the context. And if a man strikes the eye of his male or female slave and ruins it, he shall let him go free on account of his eye. And if he knocks out a tooth of his male or female slave, he shall let him go free on account of his tooth. All right, now let's put this in perspective. Okay. The lax talionis isn't necessarily talking about literally plucking a person's eye that's plucked your eye. The principle is that the punishment cannot exceed the crime. Are you with me? Eye for an eye means if you took my eye, I don't take both your hands, both your eyes, and both your feet. That punishment is excessive. So the spirit behind eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth means the punishment cannot exceed the crime. Now, the Bible doesn't say to strike your servant. It's saying if it happens that you strike your servant, injury is done, right? So you're going to be punished. But if he's not injured, right, then you're not punished. Not because saying you could beat your slave. It's saying in the case you did and you injured him, you're going to be punished. But if there's no injury, then let that be a lesson for you, right? And by property, the term property doesn't have the same meaning that you have today. I'm going to prove to you when it says the slave's your property, it's not to dehumanize your slave. It means that he is under your authority, he's within your possession, and you're responsible. Don't define terms from your 21st century perspective. You with me there? To you, property, you're thinking, oh, something that is less valuable than a human. Like, my car. No. That's not the definition in that context. Property means under your possession, right? And therefore, it's your responsibility. Even with, let's say, your home, your property, you're responsible for its upkeep. You understand the principle? And I'm going to show you eye for an eye extends to the slaves. And here you get an idea of what eye for an eye means. It's not literally taking an eye out. It means the punishment cannot exceed the crime. And this illustrates it here. If I've injured a slave, then they are free. They're no longer slaves. But now watch. Leviticus 24, 17, 23. Here's eye for an eye again. Now let me tie it in. Okay. If a man strikes down the life of any human being, he shall surely be put to death. Notice, any human being, not classes, only free, like 2178 of the Quran. Any human being includes even your slaves. See how that works? Any human being includes your slaves because they're human. And by the way, notice this is in the context of eye for an eye. Same context as Leviticus 24. So now when I read eye for an eye here, and then tie it in with over here, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth extends even to your slaves. Okay, everyone got this, right? If a man strikes down the life of any human being, not just free humans, any human being, your slaves included, shall be put to death. And the one who strikes down the life of an animal shall make restitution for life for life. Meaning, Since an animal does not have the same value you do, you don't be put to death for an animal, but you must restore that animal. Restitution means you must now give the owner of the animal an animal in its place of the same value. We got it? Of the same value. You get what restitution means? Because an animal is not equal to the worth of a human life. You don't put me to death for killing your dog, but then I have to replace your dog with a dog of equal value. But if I were to put a human slave to death, then I am to be killed, because it says any human being. Okay, let's continue. If a man injures his neighbor, just as he has done, so it shall be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, just as he's injured a man, so it shall be inflicted on him. Now, does this apply only to free or any human being? And besides, is your slave not your neighbor? Okay. Thus, the one who strikes down an animal shall make restitution for it, replace it with an animal of the same value. But the one who strikes down a man shall be put to death. Only free humans or any human being? There shall be one standard of judgment for you. It shall be for the sojourner as well as the native. Meaning, this same law will apply to a foreigner who's not ethnically an Israelite. So you cannot discriminate between a Gentile and an Israelite, because if that Gentile lives in your midst, you treat him as an Israelite. For I am Yahweh your God. Then Moses spoke to the sons of Israel. They brought the one who had cursed outside the camp and stoned him with stones. Thus the sons of Israel did just as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Can you get any more fair than this? So if I interpret this, any human being, if I put him to death, I'm to die. And injury for injury, meaning the punishment cannot exceed the crime. Any human being would include even slaves and Gentiles. That means when slaves are mentioned, males or females, in the same context of eye for an eye, that shows you that slaves are not being discriminated against, they're being protected. You get it? And it also explains that eye for an eye need not be literal, meaning I take out your eye, meaning the punishment cannot exceed the crime. See the principle? Because right here it says eye for an eye. And then it mentions if a man strikes the eye of his male or female slave and ruins it, he shall let him go on free account of his eye. Notice that the taking of the eye results in the entire person being set free and now being treated as a free man. So is it literally eye for an eye, or is it a principle? The punishment cannot exceed the crime. See, it's not as simple as saying, oh yeah, pluck his eye out. But the idiot wouldn't know any better because he's too stupid. And it shows you that this is applicable to the baby in the mother's womb and to the male enslaved, because it's telling you about a pregnant woman. If you cause her to give birth prematurely, but the baby is safe, then you're only going to fine the man who caused her to go into labor pains prematurely by striking her. But if the baby's injured, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. But is it literal, you pluck an eye, or is it talking about compensation? Notice here it's being fined. So the principle is your punishment can't be greater than the crime, but the punishment isn't literally an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It can refer to a compensation that will be equal, right, to the eye or to the tooth or the hand. But if it's murder, then that there is no ifs, ands, or buts. Put him to death. So what is an eye for a slave? They are to be set free. That's eye for an eye. That's tooth for a tooth. You with me there? See here, tooth. So I'm not lying. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand. For a slave means set them free. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for foot for. Notice, if a man strikes the eye of his male or female slave and ruins it, he shall let him go free on account of his eye. And if he knocks out a tooth of his male, so it's telling you what eye for an eye means. The eye for the eye of a slave is their freedom. The tooth for the tooth of a slave is their freedom. That is the just punishment. You need to set them free. They're no longer your slaves. They're now free humans. Do you see? Makes sense, right? This is why, if you do intensive research, you don't find a recorded case in the Old Testament where someone's eye was plucked out because they plucked out their neighbor's eye. So is it literally eye for an eye, or is it saying the punishment cannot exceed the crime? So if I do take my servant's eye out, what is the eye that I must now give in place of it? Their freedom. What is the tooth that I must give in place of the tooth being knocked out? Their freedom. Making sense? But to show you that the slaves are treated with equal value and dignity, don't forget here. If a man strikes down the life of any human being, not just free, not just Israelites, Gentiles, slaves, you name it. Did that make sense? Let me know if this helped you understand and appreciate how fair and just these rules are in light of that ancient cultural context. You don't try to understand these in light of the 21st century. Look at these laws in that context. You'll see they're revolutionary and mind-blowing for that time. If this is a principle that is flexible in order to fit the changing, evolving circumstances, then yes, eye for an eye is even for today. You understand? The problem is when people read things literally that are not meant to be literal, but are principles. So what is an eye for an eye in the case of a slave? Right here. Freedom. What's the tooth for a tooth in case of a slave? Freedom. So you see, is it literal or is it a principle? That if I damage the eye of a slave, they're free. If I damage the tooth of a slave, they're free. If I injure, they're free. But if a slave dies, then the master must be punished. But what's the punishment for a master murdering a slave because of excessive beating? Or just murdering them? Here you go. If a man strikes down the life of any human being, he shall surely be put to death. See how it works? Now I'm going to give you one more example that people use to try to show how inhumane the Bible is. But I want to see if you guys will actually see how just and fair this is. Deuteronomy 25, 11 and 12. If two men, let's see, this is another one that's been used against the Bible. If two men, a man and his brother, are struggling together, and the wife of one comes near to deliver her husband from the hand of the one who's striking him, she puts out her hand and sees his genitals. Notice, she deliberately attacks his genitals. It's deliberate. She doesn't go for the face. She doesn't go for the chest. She doesn't go for the mouth. she deliberately strikes his genitals. Deliberately. Notice this: premeditated, deliberate. Now let's see who's going to make the connection and why this punishment isn't as severe and humane as you may think. And then you shall cut off her hand, you shall not show pity. Okay, now I'm trying to give you the clue. Note, she deliberately targets the genitals. She doesn't go for the mouth, the nose, the face, the chest. She goes for the genitals. Cut her hand, show no pity. Now let's see if you understand why she goes for the genitals, because let me show you how serious it is in the context of the Old Testament. Watch here. Let's see. Deuteronomy 25, 5-10. If brothers live together, did you catch it? Brothers live together. Two men, a man and his brother. Clue number one. If brothers live together and one of them dies and has no son, then the wife of the one who died shall not be married outside the family to a strange man. Her husband's brother shall go in to her and take her to himself as wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And it will be that the firstborn whom she bears shall assume the name of his dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. Notice, to die childless means your lineage is cut off, you're blotted out. To ensure that doesn't happen, my brother would marry my widow, and the first child she conceives would be mine to continue my line. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to raise up a name for his brother in Israel. He is not willing to perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. The most wicked, evil, heinous act you could commit against your brother's lineage. The elders of his city shall summon him and speak to him, and if he stands and says, I do not desire to take her, then his brother's wife shall come to him in the sight of the elders, pull his sandal off his foot, and spit in his face. And she shall answer and say, thus it is done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. See? Spit. And in Israel his name shall be called the house of him whose sandals removed. This is such a wicked sin that in Genesis 38, when the son of Judah, married, God struck him down, killed him before he had a child because he was evil. Then Judah told his younger brother, Onan, to go in, sleep with your brother's widow, and sire a child for him. It says Onan would pull out, coitus interruptus, spill his seed on the ground because he didn't want to get her pregnant and procure a child for his brother. It said when God saw that's what did, he struck him down for that evil. Okay, now you see why the woman struck the genitals. What was she hoping to do? Just like she was trying to cut off his lineage, God will now cut off her hand. You wanted to cut off his lineage by crushing his genitals so he couldn't have children, cutting off his lineage. I'm going to cut off your hand, the hand that you use to try to cut off his lineage. That's eye for an eye. See the wisdom? Do you understand? Like you tried to cut off his lineage by crushing his genitals, I'm now going to cut off your hand. Eye for an eye. You want to cut off his lineage? I'm going to cut off your hand, the hand you use to cut off his lineage. Again, do you see the wisdom here? What does that got to do with Messiah? I told you that Yahweh is the mighty God. How many mighty gods are there?
One, I believe there's one.
Yeah, but the child is the mighty God too, so do math for me.
But okay, so that's the thing about the Trinity that's kind of confusing though. Like, so you guys, you believe that there's three people and one God.
No, we don't say people.
Well, three distinct entities.
Three distinct persons, more appropriately.
Okay, so three distinct persons that are one God. So like, but like there's verses where it says like Jesus will sit on the right hand of God in heaven, or not in heaven, but like,
who's God there? So it says Adam was married to Adam.
Adam was married to Adam.
Yep, because Eve's name is Adam. So how can she be married to Adam? So that's the logic you're using to me.
Adam was married to Adam.
Yeah,
Okay.
because Eve's name is Adam. That's in your Bible. I'll show you. Hold on.
Okay, but so what? Like, okay, I get what you're trying to say, but so what does that verse
I
mean
don't
then?
think
Like,
you're
where
getting it,
God,
because explain to me, how can Adam be married to Adam?
he can't. I guess there could be a mistranslation there, maybe.
No, there isn't much translation. The word is Adam in Hebrew. What are you talking about? This is the book of the generation, Genesis 5, 1 and 2, of Adam. On the day that God created Adam, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female, blessed them, and called their name Adam on the day that they were created. Do you see their name is Adam?
Okay.
Male and female, right? But then I'm told, afterward, the man knew Eve, his wife. Who's the man? And Adam knew his wife again. So how can Eve be married to Adam if she's Adam? See, that's what you're asking me. So explain that to me. How is Eve Adam, yet her husband is Adam, and she's married to Adam?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to explain that.
Very easy. Because the term Adam is used for anyone that has the nature of Adam. So if you're human, Adam, Hebrew, mankind, that makes you an Adam. So you can have Eve being Adam and married to Adam, because the male is also Adam in nature. So Jesus at the right hand of God, who would that God be? The Father. But just because he's at the right hand of God the Father doesn't mean he is not God in nature. Because if Jesus is God, but he's not the Father, then he can be at the right hand of God while being God in nature.